Alright, hello everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of the JimFear138 podcast. I'm sorry that I didn't get a podcast out for the past, however the fuck long it's been. I don't even know anymore, guys. I've completely lost the fucking plot. It's over. Call an ambulance. I'm going down. I'm not doing okay, but it's getting better? I don't know. It's been very weird going into 2017. Happy New Year, by the way, everybody. That's right, it's 2017 now. I gotta keep reminding myself. It usually takes me like half a month to get a hold of that fucking shit. But yeah, it's been really weird going into 2017, because, like 4 days into the year, the transmission on my car blew out. Let me see, what's today's? No, 3 days. 3 days. On the 3rd, the transmission of my car fucking blew out while I was on the way home. And I had to get a tow truck ride to a mechanic, and it turns out, yeah, it wasn't the transmission, so it's not going to cost an arm and a leg, it's just going to cost a leg. But yeah, that shit happened, and I wound up having to pay like $90 to the tow truck guy for both of the rides. He charged me $45 each time. Like, this dude, like, I used to talk shit about Christians. I will never talk shit about Christians again, guys. Ever. In my entire fucking life. Because that guy who picked up my fucking car and drove me not just to one mechanic, but to two, only charged me $45 each time. Whereas any other tow truck service I would have cared to use would have charged me over $120 per trip. So I owe that dude a debt of gratitude, and to kind of make up for it, to kind of pay that debt, I'll never make fun of a Christian again for being a Christian, unless they deserve it. I'm just fucking around. But yeah, that was gonna be like all of the money that I made in 2016 off of my audiobooks right there. The transmission in my car blew out. If you guys who don't own cars out there don't know how expensive a transmission is to put in, I was staring down the barrel of $1,200. $1,200 US to get my car fixed. And that's all the money I saved up over the past year doing audiobooks. All of it. I mean, I wasn't about to file bankruptcy, because you never do that. But it was pretty depressing. But for some reason, I never got depressed. I've just had this relentless optimism going into the new year. Like, I keep getting hit in the face with these baseball bats, and I just keep smiling for some reason, and I just keep feeling good. I haven't even been working out. I haven't even been exercising, but I feel great going into this year. I'm confident that this year is going to be good. This is the year that my fortunes are going to actually start turning around. Hopefully. But I'm not going to say anything definite, because that's a quick way to get your shit to crash and burn. But I hope that you all had a lovely New Year's celebration. I hope that you all had a lovely Christmas and Hanukkah time. And I hope that your new year will be as good as I hope mine is. Because I'm hoping for mine to get very good. I just actually got contact. By the way, thank you to Brian Niemeyer, the guy who wrote the Soul Cycle series, which I keep plugging on my Twitter and in my podcast, because the book is so fucking good. Netherial, starting with an N. Netherial. Go buy it. He plugged me as an audiobook producer on his Twitter, and I actually think I got a job out of it. The guy seems very excited to work with me. I sent in an audition. He kept telling me how much he liked it. So, you know, he's got to get a Kickstarter up for his book. So once that goes live, I'm going to be pimping that, because I'm invested in it at this point. That's going to be my audiobook job right there. So expect to hear about that. And he seems like a very nice guy, and I look forward to working with him. So thank you very much, Brian, for pimping my name out there. You know, as a new independent narrator and voice actor, word of mouth is my best fucking friend. So I really do appreciate it. I owe you one, man. Maybe I'll pick up some copies of your book, some physical copies, and I'll donate them to my local library. That would be pretty cool. I mean, I was planning on picking up physical copies for me anyway, just because I want them on the fucking shelf. But, you know, that would also be really cool to have them in the library. That would be neat. So anyway, we do have some bad news to start off the year. You guys have probably already heard about this, but I figure I might as well speak my piece on it because it's all everybody's been talking about for the past couple of days. The kidnapping of this young man in Chicago that happened. What's this world fucking coming to, guys? This is America. This kind of shit isn't supposed to happen here. But for like the two of you who listen to this podcast that don't know, four black people, I think it was 2 black guys and 2 black girls, they kidnapped a young autistic white guy in Chicago, and they held him for a certain amount of time. I don't know how long they held him. And they tortured him. They forced him to drink toilet water. They scalped him. Not like a full scalp, but they cut his fucking head with a knife. They tied him up. They ashed in his wound. They like ashed a cigarette in his wound. It was just absolutely fucking reprehensible behavior. They threatened to put him in the trunk of a car and leave a brick on the gas pedal and just let it go. All the while screaming, "Fuck white people," and "Fuck Donald Trump." So, you know, and I watched like the first half of the video. There's one up on vid.me, I think, that hasn't been taken down yet. It's really fucking hard to watch. If I can find it, I'll put it in the description. I only got through about half of it before I just had to tap out. I couldn't fucking watch anymore. It was pretty goddamn horrible that people who, well, Chicago's not the best area, but who were relatively well off compared to, say, Afghanistan, you know, doing that to another human being. But the thing that really bugged me about it, and I really do hope that the guy is okay. So far as I know, his wounds have been treated. He's got to a hospital, his wounds have been treated, and he's going to make a full recovery. He's not exactly permanent. I mean, he's going to have a scar on his fucking head, and probably in his head for the rest of his life. But, so far as I know, he's okay, and I hope he's going to be okay, mentally, as well as physically. But the thing that really disturbs me about this is that guy hadn't done anything to them. They picked him specifically because he was white and, according to them, probably a Trump supporter. That was how they justified this. He was white, and he probably supported Trump. Therefore, it's okay for us to kidnap and torture him and live stream it on Facebook Live and make jokes about it while we're torturing him. You know, this kind of animalistic behavior is what I'm starting to see as kind of symptomatic of the left in this country nowadays. You know, one of the things that I've had to come to grips with over the past year, and it's been a drastic reformation of my thought processes and the way that I perceive the world, is that the left, the Democrats, just the American political left in general, are not good people. They are not friendly. They are not nice. They are not out to help the little guy. They're not out to help. They're not even out to help the people they say they're out to help, like minorities and women. They're really not. And this whole collective guilt, and one of the ways that you can tell that this is a direct consequence of leftist rhetoric is that I very, very rarely hear conservatives and right-leaning people talk about collective punishment or even collective responsibility. You know, people on the right are very much into personal responsibility and personal punishment and individual justice, which is something I'm in full support of. I never bought into that rhetoric about, you know, reparations for slavery and white people should feel bad for what white people 100 years ago did to black people 100 years ago, and it was just, yeah, it was terrible for them, but nobody alive right now is responsible for that. And yeah, you kind of need to fucking get over it, bro. You weren't never in a fucking cotton field, unless you went on a field trip when you were a kid. But that's one of the hallmarks of leftist rhetoric when it reaches an insane person. I went over this in the episode of this podcast called Going Thermonuclear, and the reason that I was so monumentally upset at Pseudopod for giving a platform to this kind of dehumanizing rhetoric that they did in their episode Boys. This narrative that encourages child abuse is because that exact rhetoric is what led the woman that I mentioned in the article at the end of the podcast. That's what led that woman to kill her children, because she was so afraid that they might grow up to abuse women one day. So it's better that they die instead of get proper schooling or proper education on how to interact with other humans and how to treat women. And that's not your average leftist's fault. That woman obviously has some mental disability. And this rhetoric obviously kind of boiled over in her mind to where this was, for her, the necessary outcome. And it's the same thing with this Trump stuff, with this guy in Chicago. What really bothers me about it is that Black Lives Matter and just the Democrats and the left in general, the media, have been pushing this narrative of white people are evil, white people are racist, only white people can be racist. That's very important to remember. Only white people can be racist. For so long. And their doctrines of collective responsibility and collective punishment have been pushed for so long that now we're at the point where it has empowered crazy people to kidnap an innocent and torture him with threats of murder because he is part of what they consider to be an oppressive group. He's white. He probably voted for Trump because he's white. I mean, there's no white people out there that supported Hillary, right? Those people don't exist, you know? So because he looks wrong, because they believe he might have supported the quote-unquote wrong candidate, he's fair game. This had nothing to do with the boy that was kidnapped. This had everything to do with them burning their Satan in effigy. That's what it had to do with. That was the point of that. And that's what's so very disturbing to me about it, is that this is collective responsibility taken to its natural, logical endpoint. If all white people are racist, subconsciously, even if they don't mean to be racist, even if they aren't wearing KK uniforms and calling black people niggers at McDonald's, even if they're not doing any of that, even if they are the nicest, most philanthropic white person, if they are still racist on some level, and racism is evil, and racism is what keeps black people down and perpetuates this culture of oppression and all of this other horseshit that they preach, then it is justifiable to take a member of this oppressive group and do horrible, horrible things to them that you would never count. You would be outraged if somebody did this to a member of your family. Or if you're one of these collectivists, a member of your group, a member of your tribe. It becomes acceptable because they just look wrong. They just look like the wrong type of person. And that's very, very disturbing to me. And I hope this doesn't set a precedent for the rest of the year. I hope that this does not continue on into the rest of the year. I hope that this is a one-time, isolated incident, and these fucking leftists realize what's going on and cool their fucking jets. But already, you know, a day after it happened, you had the fucking idiots on CNN talking about how this isn't evil, this is a result of bad parenting. This is stupid kids making stupid decisions. This is just, kids will be kids rhetoric. Like, you know how you leftists get really pissed off when people supposedly use boys will be boys to excuse rape, which nobody ever does? That's what these people on CNN were doing. They're using kids make stupid decisions to justify and excuse the capture, the kidnapping, and torture of an innocent autistic kid because he was white, because he voted Trump. And you people wonder why these far-right movements are making a resurgence, why there's a quote-unquote white lash out there, why there seem to be so many more poltards and storm fags out there. You people wonder where these people come from and don't understand that you are creating your own enemy here. Or maybe you do. Maybe you do understand that, and that's why you're fucking evil. You are creating this enemy so you have something to react against. You react against a non-existent enemy until that enemy is called into being by your action, and then you have an excuse. And you can just memory hole the fact that that enemy never existed until you created them. Maybe that's it. And these kids in Chicago, who I hope burn in fucking hell, by the way. I hope they get the fucking 30-year sentence. It's mandatory 6 for the crime that they did. Mandatory 6, possible 30. Maximum 30. I hope they get the fucking 30-year sentence. But these kids in Chicago are just useful idiots. They're rubes. They don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. They're probably functionally retarded. They probably got an IQ of around 70. And they don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. They just hate white people because of all of the rhetoric that they've swallowed over the past couple of years. Because children are very impressionable. But these fucks at Black Lives Matter, and that's why I justify calling it the BLM kidnapping. That's why I use that phrase to describe this BLM kidnapping. Because while these young kids may not have been Black Lives Matter supporters, it is entirely plausible and even likely, in my opinion, that they are, because we all know that Black Lives Matter is a black supremacist domestic terrorist organization, right? That's not in doubt anymore, is it? And B, the rhetoric of Black Lives Matter and these fools on CNN absolutely justifies this kind of behavior in these people. It does. It justifies this kind of fucking behavior. It is free license. Dude, that's the point of Marxism. Marxism is originally an economic philosophy, okay? It was about the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, alright? And the bourgeoisie kept all the money for themselves, they kept all of the good things in society for themselves, and they rode on the backs of the proletariat, and they never gave them anything, and they were oppressing these people. This is the Marxist conception of the world. They were oppressing these people by, basically being successful. But because that failed in economics every single time it has ever been tried anywhere on planet Earth, every experiment in Marxism has gone down the tubes. It's become a hellhole like Venezuela, or Maoist China, or Stalinist Russia. They have tried to apply these dynamics, this oppressor and oppressed dynamic of, one group getting one over on the other one, perpetually, in perpetuity, collectively, to race relations, to sex relations, to all of this stuff. So men oppress women, straight suppress gays, white suppress blacks. And when you preach that kind of rhetoric, striking out, and there have even been people on this side who have come out and said that violence against Trump is a rational response. It is reasonable to lash out at your oppressors. I've seen that rhetoric more times than I can fucking count. Trust me, I spend a lot of time on Tumblr where a lot of people buy into this bullshit. I see it first fucking hand, and no, these are not trolls. These are people who buy into this. It's obvious. Unless there's a 200,000 strong contingent of people who are pretending to be Marxist to troll people, a lot of these people fucking do agree with this shit. And when you agree with this shit, it becomes justifiable to strike back at innocents because you perceive them to be a part of the oppressor class. That's the problem here. That's the root cause of this. Is this Marxist ideology applied to race relations in America. You know, that kid didn't steal their fucking bike. He didn't nab their dime bag of weed. He didn't steal anything from them. He didn't take anything from them. He didn't hurt them. They kidnapped him because he was white. They were burning Trump in effigy when they were torturing this kid. That's what it was. That kid was a stand-in for every single person in these oppressive groups that they want to fight back against but can't physically get at. But they could get at that vulnerable, innocent, autistic kid, and now they did. And not one leftist has questioned whether they might be fucking wrong about this. There have even been people saying that the cops faked it, which, how boneheaded can you fucking be? But yeah, that's one of the reasons that I'm never voting Democrat again. I'm now considering myself a conservative, because, you know, I just can't be a part of that shit. I just can't be associated with that shit, with that kind of fucking evil, or with the rhetoric that inspires that kind of evil in people. Because I'm a godless, heathen, degenerate atheist, okay? I don't believe in God. I don't believe in ultimate good or ultimate evil or any of that shit, okay? I think that the universe is essentially mechanistic. It's kind of a machine, and I'm a little bit of a determinist, but I haven't read enough on that to figure out exactly where I stand. Determinism kind of appeals to me, but I'm one of those people who's like, well, nobody actually has free will, but it's useful for us to act like we do. So it's kind of a moot, like the free will question is kind of moot to me anyway. You know, if we do have free will, then good. If we don't have free will, then what are you going to do about it? You know, but even I can understand that evil exists. Evil absolutely exists. And that right there, what happened in Chicago, that's evil. That's unaccountably, unabashedly, unquestionably evil. What these people did to this kid. And I hope they go down until they're not able to have kids anymore. I hope they get beaten in prison for what they did. I hope they get disowned by their family. Because damn sure I would disown my child after pulling some shit like that. Huh. So, I don't know, guys. It just bothers the hell out of me that that this happened, and nobody who's been pushing the rhetoric that allowed for this mindset to develop, for these actions to take place, is willing to take responsibility for their part in this. And you know they're not going to. But that aside, there is another thing that I had wanted to talk about. Apparently, and this pissed me off for several reasons. So apparently, there is a magazine out there called Uncanny magazine, and I'd been following them on Twitter for a while, because I didn't know. But they one of their issues was satirically reviewed. They're a science fiction fantasy magazine. One of their issues was satirically reviewed in SF Crow's Nest, and SF Crow's Nest has since deleted the article, which, by the way, SF Crow's Nest, fuck you! Fuck you, you pussies! You're shitlording wrong! If you're gonna do something like this, then you leave it up, and you never fucking apologize about it. If you're going to decide that that's okay to print, you absolutely do not walk it back. Not one iota, not one word should be walked back if you're going to do something like this. But, some dear soul, some dear leftist on Twitter has preserved via screen captures the article. So, I'm going to go through this satirical article and we're going to find out exactly how bad it is. Now, I have read this before, but I figure it would be worth it to go ahead and go through this. It's not all that long. It's, I don't know, not even 1,000 words, probably. So, let's just go through this and see what was so fucking bad. So this is Uncanny Magazine number 14 EMAG review by Eamon Murphy on SF Crow's Nest. Content warning right there at the beginning. This review contains sarcasm, which is why people freaked out about this review so bad. It wasn't John C. Wright who came up with the quote, but in one of the episodes of the Superversive SF podcast, John C. Wright explains that the reason that SJWs and people like them freak out so badly is that the devil will not suffer himself to be mocked. He cannot countenance mockery of himself, which is why I, had to kind of revise my thinking. I'm bad. I'm a bad person. I fully admit that, but I'm not evil. I can still laugh at myself. I'm not a good guy, but I'm not an evil guy either. I'm kind of somewhere comfortably in the middle, where I can still do morally ambiguous things and not really get in trouble for it. But anyway, so Uncanny Magazine, this is the article. Uncanny Magazine is a bi-monthly periodical that features essays and fiction. I'll pick out the highlights. The first fiction is Bodies Stacked Like Firewood by Sam J. Miller. When Sid, a transgender person, commits suicide, tragically unhappy due to our rotten society, some of his friends blame themselves. The narrator is a promiscuous gay bottom who goes online looking for fuck buddies. That's okay because he's not a heterosexual man objectifying women's bodies by only wanting them for sex. The story contains Sid's fantastical theories about The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, which in Sid's eyes predicted the Nazi Holocaust. Fitzgerald may have been told about it by his wife, Zelda, who had visions which drove her crazy. There is reference to a cisgender man. Cisgender, for those of you still living in the Stone Age, is a term for those people who have a gender identity that matches the sex they were assigned at birth, i.e. cis men are happy being men. They used to be called men. 1. Mark Rustad is a queer non-binary writer, look it up, Stone Age man, and wrote Monster Girls Don't Cry. A girl lives in a castle with her sister. Sis never goes out because she has too many teeth in her mouth, all pointy and long claws in her hands. Our heroine mixes in the normal world by filing down the horns that grow out of her head and the wings that grow out of her back. After an attempted rape by her boyfriend, she decides she prefers girls. Then her ex starts stalking her and kidnaps her sister. This was well written, and the message of tolerance for those who look different has hardly ever been touched on by Star Trek and similar so-called fantasy productions in the oppressive mainstream media. To Budapest with Love by Theodora Goss is a story/essay written in the present tense. It is a first-person account of the author's duality, being Hungarian by birth but growing up in the United States of America speaking English. She is drawn back to Hungary and even managed to visit her grandparents there in the communist era. When the Berlin Wall came down, it became easier to go there, but the country began to change as well. I found this rather cold and unemotional. Surely, trapped in this appalling situation, Theodora could have wrung more pity from the reader. In Some Cupids Kill with Arrows, Meg goes on a speed dating night and meets Hercules and Cupid. As she has a master's in comparative mythology, something her mother assured her would be quite useless, she is well prepared. Tansy Rayner Roberts gives us a tasteless romp about dating and heterosexual love. Not a word about the cheap objectification of oppressed womankind that everyone knows is the true nature of such things. I was frankly disgusted by this appalling mainstream trash that perpetuates the white male phallocentric viewpoint. I couldn't really see the point of The Unknown God by Anne Leckie neither. Aworo, Lord of Horses, god of the Western Plains, took on male human form and fell in love with Seist, female servant of the river god Nalandar, in the city of Caleb. He asked her to marry him, and when she turned him down, cursed her, "Turn away from the river and die." This meant that if she left the river, she would die. This guy's a total shitlord. Having spent some time with atheists in the hills, he has returned to Caleb. This well-crafted meditation on gods, man, and fraud was entertaining, I suppose, but didn't address any of the crucial issues of white supremacy, homophobia, neo-Nazism, and misogyny, which are helpfully listed in this issue's editorial. Disappointing. Disappointed! I've given up reading the nonfiction in Uncanny because it's too heartbreaking. I thought Inferior Beasts by Mark Oshiro was a story because the header had a severe content note for descriptions of child abuse and homophobia. I decided I didn't want to read it, then I thought I better had. It turned out to be a review of J.K. Rowling's Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, just the sort of garbage where you'd expect to find child abuse. Turns out a kid gets beaten by his mother. My mother hit me sometimes, and I was so upset by this that I couldn't read further to find the homophobia, but I'm sure it was there. These mainstream children's films are notorious for homophobia and hatred of strong women. Remember when Bambi's mother got shot? The author notes tell us the Mark has been subjecting himself to the emotional journey that one takes when they enter a fictional world for the first time. I was reminded of the sleeve notes on Yellow Submarine about the Beatles. They are heroes for all of us, and better than we deserve. After the incredible courage Mark showed in watching such a traumatic film, I'm ashamed I couldn't finish his review. Review? The word is too small. Surely this is on par with Primo Levi's account of Auschwitz. He's a hero for all of us, and better than we deserve. So that's Uncanny Magazine. If you're the kind of reader who thinks fantasy should feature admirable people struggling against great odds to save other people in some sort of metaphor for the real world, too bad. If you think science fiction should be about engineers or scientists solving the problems of environmental catastrophe, expanding population, terraforming Mars, or other real social and political issues, too bad. If you think that science fiction magazines should have essays and articles about real-life advances in science that can benefit all mankind, well, I pity you. I pity you. This will be the last time I review Uncanny Magazine. The torment is more than my fragile heart can stand. Did I mention that I was called Big Ears at school and my friend was called Fatty? We never had any counseling. Oh, pity me. Pity me. Emmon Murphy, December 2016. Okay, so I'll put the links to those screen caps of the of the review on in the show notes. Oh boy. Okay, so alright, so maybe it was a little bit heavy-handed. Maybe he pulled his dick out when he didn't have to. Respect to the guy for pulling his dick out like that, though. God damn. But when you publish message fiction like this, you can expect to get bad reviews. You can expect to get people who are dissatisfied with the way that you do business. The only problem is that these people have been running the roost for so long that they're not used to being mocked. And as, I will rip from John C. Wright again, the devil cannot suffer mockery. And this led to a bunch of people going on to Uncanny Magazine's Patreon and pledging money and everything like that, and I really don't think it's gonna last. I hate to tell you guys, but the kind of audience that you're courting, I don't know if they're poor, or if they have short attention spans, or if they have just low engagement overall, but they don't tend to monetarily support things. There was a video game called Sunset. Let me make sure I have the right one. Yes, it was called Sunset, and it was about, it was an indie game about this black woman in Mexico, I want to say. Oh, fictional country of Anchuria. Hang on, we got the Wikipedia here. It's a first-person indie game by Belgian studio Tale of Tales. It was released on May 21st, 2015. In Sunset, Angela, an African-American housekeeper, is working for Gabriel Ortega in the fictional country of Anchuria, where she is visiting. So, yeah, I don't know if you guys know how Sunset went, but I remember this happening back when Gamergate was still a thing, and I was still following it. This game bombed. I mean, bombed. The studio went bankrupt. They don't exist anymore. Let me make sure. Yeah, right here. Once again, from the Wikipedia article. Following the commercial failure of their game Sunset, Tale of Tales announced that they would no longer pursue commercial video game projects. Yeah, they don't exist anymore, guys. They're done. They're off the fucking radar. These are the people that you're pandering to. And this didn't get bad reviews because, oh, those goober gators. It got bad reviews because it was a bad game. Your fiction got bad reviews because it was probably bad to that person. They probably didn't like what you were doing with your fiction. And hey, do what you want shall be the whole of the law, so long as it harms no one else. But, do not expect everybody to applaud you for doing whatever you want. You know, my neighbors can fuck in their pool without a privacy fence if they want. That doesn't mean that I have to fucking like it and applaud it and say, oh, you're so brave. You're so brave. Keep doing what you're doing. Not everybody's gonna like what you do, fam. Not everybody's gonna like what you do. But an admirable way to take it in stride is the way Alexander over at Kerfuffle took in stride a fairly critical review of one issue of his magazine. I want to say it was the second one. I don't remember. If I can find the post over on Kerfuffle's website, I will link it in the description. But this person had reviewed the magazine as, you know, basically sophomoric wish fulfillment fiction. You know, what everybody thinks Conan is, essentially. And Alexander over at Kerfuffle was very equanimous about the whole thing, if that's even a fucking word. He had excellent equanimity. Let me put it that way. He had excellent equanimity about the whole thing. And he took it very philosophically. He was grateful for the exposure. He was glad that somebody had reviewed and that they had found stories that they actually did like in the magazine. So that was how he fucking took it. This, people freaked out. Freaked out. Now, question. Did anything in that article that I read to you, go read those screen caps. Does anything in that sound like hate speech to you? Because that's what it's getting touted as. That's hate speech now. Satire and sarcasm are hate speech. These people have no idea what it takes to make it in the world without someone constantly fucking hugging them and telling them that they're wonderful. They have no conception of failure. They have to be validated by everybody, otherwise it's hate speech. But the people that Uncanny Magazine is pandering to are the same people who praised, you know, Femme Thor, the female Thor comics that came out a couple of years back. They're the same people that praised that and gave it one of the best opening months in the history of Thor comic books. Okay? That first month, it was wildly successful. Come a year later, they had to cancel the fucking comic because nobody was buying it. Not even the people who thought that this was, oh, this is a wonderful, you know, triumph for women in nerd media. You know, they came out in a big show of force the first time they were called upon, but they didn't realize that something like that takes sustained effort. You have to keep working at that. You actually do, yes, have to go back to the comic store and buy issue 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 for that to be a successful comic book. You can't point to, oh, we had a great opening month. Well, yeah, but you bombed the month right after. Like, your sales dropped off like 40% the next month because you stupid faggots didn't go out and buy the goddamn comic book. These are the people that you're pandering to, Uncanny, and they're not going to keep supporting you like this. Eventually, they're going to get bored and they're going to go find something else. And I pity you. I pity you. If you want my advice, go buy a couple of issues of Kerfuffle and take notes. You know, go look up a little document called Appendix N that's been making its way around the net. You know, go look up a guy called Jeffro Johnson and get back to us. And actually, I was kind of surprised that it had taken this turn, because I had, like I say, I'd been following them for several months at this point, and I'm going to keep following them because, you know, it's important to keep tabs on your enemy. But John Mollison over at Seagull Rising, and I'll leave a link to this down there in that description there. He actually wrote a post called Uncanny Unmasked. And I'm not going to read the whole post, but basically his point is, you know, if you're judging a book by its cover, then what's on the cover should be in the book. You know, and he makes the comparison again to Kirsova. On the cover of Kirsova issue 3, you've got a wizard burning pirates alive on a pirate ship at sea from inside of a magical artifact, or you know, a magic circle. It's amazing. There's drama, there's flashy lights, there's shit going on. And then you look at all of the examples of Uncanny that he posts here, and yeah, the worlds that these are in look like they might be interesting, but they're not really doing anything. There's like one down here with this lady in an old school space helmet kind of thing, you know, staring at her zap gun and not really doing anything other than just looking at her zap gun, and she kind of looks like the medicine just kicked in. And then there's one with this girl with like a backpack on and like a hoodie, and this giant Artorias sword being held behind her. And then there's one with this Asian lady riding on what appears to be a leopard. And the art is good, but they're not really doing anything. They're just kind of there. And he makes the point near the end of this article, and this kind of sums up the whole thing. Here we go. This this paragraph near the end right here just kind of perfectly sums it up. So I'll just read this and kind of leave it at that, and then you can go and read John's post if you feel like it. The obvious objection that all stories are wish fulfillment and that Tarzan or Indiana Jones are just wish fulfillment for men, and I sure am hungry, got any more of those donuts, is stupid to the point that it's aggravating just having to casually dismiss it. For the benefit of those who don't get the difference, the men wish they could do things, the women wish they could be things. Stories are, by definition, about people who do things. Uncanny is, by design, about people who are things. Looked at that way, holy cow, Uncanny is literally objectifying women. How's that for a twist? And that's all I'll say about the, the Uncanny debacle. Apart from it's going to be very interesting watching this develop in the coming months. I'm gonna be periodically checking in on their Patreon to see how much money they're getting. But if you guys are following this podcast, then you're probably fans of good fiction. So I figured I would tell you guys about a literary movement and podcast that I found that I have not been able to stop listening to. You know, it's on YouTube, so you're not going to be able to find this on iTunes. They're not that technologically adept, apparently. But I kid, guys, I kid. I'm just poking you. It's called the Superversive movement, and the podcast is Superversive SF on YouTube, on Jason Rennie's channel. And it's a bunch of people get into a panel, and they talk about different issues in science fiction, primarily science fiction, but they also get into fantasy literature. And they also talk about the Hugos, and most of these people are sad puppies. They get people like John C. Wright, Jaji Lamplighter, Brian Niemeyer, Daddy Warpig, and, you know, people like that, and occasionally some special guests. They only do it about once a month, but that's kind of the magic of it. And if you want a good explanation of what superversive literature is, basically it's a counter to subversive literature. The people who created this movement, they looked around and they saw that everything was being subverted. And the way that they put it was, these people are not reacting against anything. They're subverting what they think is an actual belief that people hold today, which was actually held by their Victorian grandmothers who don't exist anymore. They're not fighting against anything. They're not actually subverting anything. The hole has been dug. When you subvert something, you are digging the foundation out from under it to watch it topple. It's toppled. It's done. It's over. All they're doing now, thinking that they are being wonderfully original, is just digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper. Meanwhile, the Superversive movement is trying to build up new kingdoms in place of the old. Build something on top of the rubble that has gone before. And given that the dominant trend in science fiction and fantasy literature is subversive fiction, this is actually kind of a rebellious movement now to want to build something in the face of all of this destruction. And if it includes people like Brian Niemeyer, whose work I very much enjoy, and John C. Wright, whose commentary I very much enjoy, and I believe I'm going to enjoy his books when I finally fucking get around to reading them. Why isn't your shit in audiobook, man? I would have already gone through half of your fucking catalog if it was in audio. Call me! If this is the kind of people that are being associated with this Superversive movement, then, I can tell that these are the people that I would rather ally myself with. Not only are they sad puppies, not only do they understand what they're fucking talking about, as you can tell in listening to the podcast, they seem to be very good people, and they seem to have very good aims. And the fiction, if Brian Niemeyer is any indication, is damn good. Damn good. I would much... I recently got done reading or listening to the audiobook for White Plume Mountain, which was released in '99. And it's a novelization of an old Greyhawk AD&D module called White Plume Mountain. And it was absolutely subversive fiction. It got annoying. The problem that I'm beginning to have with subversive fiction is that there's nothing being set up. And if you raise a problem, or if you're making fun of something without setting up an alternative, you're just bitching. And acting like bitching is this wonderful grand accomplishment is self-importance of a level that I just can't even fathom. And the problem that I had with White Plume Mountain was that it subverted a lot of tropes, sometimes to very hilarious effect. There were a lot of fantasy tropes that it just completely turned on its head, and it was fun to laugh at, yes. But it didn't build anything in their place. It just made them out to look ridiculous and was like, haha, look at how silly this is. And now it was fun, but it was popcorn. Meanwhile, something like Netherial is a meal. It's steak and potatoes. White Plume Mountain was potato chips. I listened to it in 2 days. I just sat there and I fucking listened to it, and it was over, and I'm currently writing a review about it. But it was potato chips. There was nothing substantial there. Meanwhile, the guys who are doing this Superversive stuff, their work is substantial. There's something deeper there. They're trying to make a statement, but at the same time, they're just trying to write good fucking fiction, which is the statement in itself. The statement is, to crib a line from Trump, make fiction great again. And if this is any indication of the quality of the work that I can look forward to, then I'm absolutely 100% on their side. Now, they're all Christians and Catholics and things like that, and I'm, a godless atheist heathen, debauching myself in the wilderness. But, by virtue of a common enemy, we can work towards a common goal. And even beyond, even if the common enemy wasn't there, I would still support this kind of thing, because they're trying to do something that nobody else is really doing in fiction right now. And not only that, the fiction is damn fucking good, and that's what I'm here for. I'm here for good fucking stories, and these are good fucking stories. I can't wait to get into the Jaji Lamplighter and John C. Wright stuff. I've got a couple of others that are on my list too. I want to get Control Alt Revolt, and there's a whole other fucking list. I've got to look up the people who contributed to the Superversive podcast, and because they're all writers, so they all have books out, so I'm gonna have to go and buy those and read them, and then of course send them the obligatory email about, hey, I do audiobooks and you don't have one. Yes, my goal in all of this is partially self-serving. Yes, I would like to eat. Thanks. I would like to one day be able to quit my job and do audio work full time. That would be very fucking nice. And to do that and be indie about it, I've got to put in the time and put in the effort and get in contact with people. So these guys can probably expect a letter from me in the near future, probably within the year, once I get around to actually reading their stuff. You know, just like... Actually, I'm not really sure how that happened with Brian, but I did get in contact with Brian Niemeyer about doing a Netherial audiobook, and that would be an honor. I would absolutely shit myself to have the opportunity to do that. That would be like a crown jewel in my audiobook career, you know, from here to perpetuity. But I will leave links to all of this in the description, and I know that I've been lax in that in the past. In my defense, it was the holidays. And in my further defense, I'm also a lazy, forgetful, absent-minded, smoked way too much weed in high school son of a bitch. So, don't yell at me now, yell it past me for fucking up my brain like that. But, I will make a list. I actually have a Word document open, so while I'm editing this, I will put all of that in the description so you guys can go and check all of this stuff out. And I really, really hope that you do, because the Superversive stuff is a really interesting discussion. It's the most interesting discussion on fiction in general that I've heard in the past almost 3 decades that I've been alive. You know, no other literary movement has really reached out and grabbed me like the Superversive movement has. So I hope that you guys will go and check that out. And I hope that you enjoy what you find. And yeah, that's the podcast, guys. Thanks very much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. I hope you all, once again, had a lovely holiday season. I hope that you all had a wonderful new year. And I hope that your new year is as good as I expect mine to be. Because we've got nowhere to go but up from here, baby. So, I'll catch y'all next week. Peace out.